I've been a huge fan of the organization for the last couple of years, and I became a member. So Blexit is a 501c3 nonprofit, non-political, nonpartisan organization whose mission is to advance minority communities, specifically targeting the African American community across the nation. Our initiatives, we have 5 pillars. Our first pillar is school choice. Our second pillar is free enterprise and entrepreneurship. Our third pillar is criminal justice reform. Our fourth pillar is to continue the promotion and also developing history programs that highlight our nation's founding principles, specifically freedom. And our fifth pillar is to showcase any of the first 4 in a format that's evocative, a visual arts format, and or live experience. That's what Blexit does. We have tons of initiatives that are happening in our country right now that are being done by our chapters.
And welcome to Liberty and Freedom with Porsha and Brian. I am your host, Brian Bledsoe. Porsha will be with us shortly, and we will have our special guest on shortly as well. And actually, so hold on one second. I think we have Porsha coming up. Let me see.
Yes.
Oh, okay. There you go.
I think so. Hold on.
Yeah. Oh.
Is it working? It keeps cutting in and out. You know, technology works when you want it to.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. I think
All right. So yeah, I see you. So yeah, I can hear you too. So yeah,
Okay.
welcome everyone to this episode of Liberty and Freedom. Also, just wanted to mention a couple of things before we get to our special guest. And well, speaking of that, are we still good with our special guest, Porsha?
Yes. Give me 1 second. He was having some trouble getting logged in.
Well, you know what? I have a couple of things, so hopefully by the time I get through all that, I can we'll be ready to go. So first off, I just want to mention a welcome to an addition to our leadership team, because we have a new director of city, and she will be overlooking the Austin area, and her name is Alexandria Butler. So we want to welcome her to the team, and so we're looking forward to working with her and getting some engagement and getting things started in the Austin area, or even more so. So that just happened earlier this week, and also in the upcoming month being November and being Thanksgiving. So we want to announce that we're looking to do something similar to what we did a couple of months before, and we want to nominate 2 families to basically be a blessing to them for Thanksgiving. And we will put that out in the coming week, and we'll send that out to the members to nominate a family that we can be able to be a blessing. As we're calling this Blessing from Blexit. And we'll put that out to the members, the nomination forms and everything, and we're really looking forward to doing what we can to help out someone and just do our part in helping out in the community. So again, for the members that are watching, look out for that email in the next week or 2. Hopefully it will be sometime next week. So also, this past month has been pretty it's been a pretty busy month, to be honest, for me personally, I guess, because a lot was going on, and to the point to where we had our Uncle Tom. Now this wasn't this month, but it was close to it. Where during our last episode we talked about the screening for Uncle Tom 2 down in Houston, and we had that, and then also going to the Blex Leadership Conference, which was in Nashville, pretty much the day out, right after that, and then we were able to go to El Paso and to speak there for the Federated Republican Women of El Paso County. Then also having the event with Patriot Mobile, hosting Dr. Bodie Barkham Jr. So all that put together and everything. So actually, that's something I put together. It's like about a minute, just to kind of give you an idea as far as the past month. I guess you can kind of call this like a recap of sorts. So I'll play that right quick. Right, it's about a minute. So here we go. All right. So so all that was this past month, and as I mentioned just recently, just a couple of minutes ago, as far as nominating our families to help them out in this upcoming holiday season. So we look forward to that as well. Now, one thing I wanted to mention, and it's something that I talked about when I spoke at the in El Paso, is that Uncle Tom 2, which was screened in Houston, and which is I've said a very compelling documentary. I think everyone should see it. If you haven't seen it, especially in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, I know there've been some screenings already. We're looking to have another screening of Uncle Tom 2 coming up in January. We don't have the exact details yet, but that will be in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And so if you haven't seen it by then, come to our location wherever it will be in Grapevine. It'll probably be in Grapevine, Texas. And we are looking forward to having another screening. Hopefully we'll have some of the cast members, also the director of Uncle Tom 2. Hopefully he will be there. We'll have a number of cast members from the documentary. Hopefully we'll have at that screening. So definitely looking forward to that. We are really enjoying our partnership with Patriot Mobile so far. They sponsored the Uncle Tom screening in Houston, and also we were contributing host to the event of hosting Dr. Bodie Barkham. Dr. Bodie Barkham, who was also in Uncle Tom 2 as well. And so we're really enjoying this partnership with Patriot Mobile, and also with the one coming up hopefully in January, and just continuing to build together and trying to do all we can, and trying to just to put together great events for everyone to enjoy. So and in mentioning about Uncle Tom 2, the one thing that I mentioned in El Paso is that it would be great to put those two films together. And when I say those two films, because also if people that don't know, our founder Candace Owens released a documentary called "The Greatest Lie Ever Sold," basically talking about things that what has been going on with groups like Black Lives Matter and stuff like that. And I mentioned it in my speech in El Paso that if you put those two films together, that is a very comprehensive view as far as what has been going on. So if you watch Uncle Tom 2, it'll kind of give you the history as far as what, how did we get here to this point, and what was going on to get to where we're at presently, and then when you watch The Greatest Life Ever Sold, it kind of gives you a idea as far as what's going on right now. And this is it's something where it would be great if you kind of have like a double feature and put those two films together for an event. I'm just speaking out loud. Just maybe we might do something like that. I don't know, but it's something I just noticed and just was talking about recently, and that those two films are very good. They complement each other in that sense. So Porsha. So what's the status?
Um, Currently he's having difficulty logging into, well, he's messaging me right now. Let me see. I have received a code and typed it in. Which connection do I use? Facebook, YouTube. Because I was telling him that, like, once you click the link, all you do is type in your name and enter the studio.
Mm-hmm.
He mentioned Zoom, like send a Zoom link, but since we're on StreamYard, it's just like we won't be able to do that until, like, since we're live right now. But
Yeah.
I think he's having a hard time getting on. So he just mentioned something about a code. Do you know?
Oh, you asking me?
Yes.
I mean, normally how it works, I mean, when we send the link out to whoever guest that we have, we send out a link. It's kind of behind the scenes thing, I guess. So we send a link out, and once you click on the link, it sends you to us, and it kind of puts you in the queue that I can see, and then I will see you. So when you click on the link, you put in your name, and then once you put in your name, you enter the studio, and then I see your name. I see something at the bottom. Then I, bring you on. So that's kind of how it works. I guess for anyone that's watching this and or looking to join us in the future, that's how it will work. But but if we are not able to get Chaplain on, the initiative for this month is criminal justice reform, and that is what we were looking to talk about with Chaplain Stoglin.
Yes, and
And
hopefully, because I just said that to him again, so hopefully he's able to get on.
okay,
But if not this time, then maybe next time. I know that elections will be over by that time, but I know he's trying, and I'm pretty sure he's trying so hard that he's getting frustrated because he can't get in. But um, do you want to go ahead and give like a little background, like want for me to give a little background on Chaplain?
yeah, sure.
Okay, so Chaplain Richmond Stoglin, Tarrant County, Texas. He is the president of the Frederick Douglass Republicans of Tarrant County. Chaplain, that's in his name. He's a veteran, and he's also worked in prisons, and he's done very wonderful work, from his military service to his service in the prison to his service in the community. He is, I would have to say, lifelong, and I would suppose and believe in my heart of hearts all the way up until God calls him home that he's going to always do good work. The Frederick Douglass Republicans means a whole lot to me. Frederick Douglass Republicans of Tarrant County, no other affiliation. And Chaplain leads the charge, and he prioritizes Black Americans in Tarrant County, and making sure that we are all at our very best. In the Frederick Douglass Republicans of Tarrant County, we have the best of the best. It's not race-based, but we have Judge Kenneth Newell, we have Judge Chris Taylor, we have the Mayor of Abilene, Mayor Williams. There are so many great, wonderful people that Chaplain has just had his hands on, and he fights for them tooth and nail, and they are doing such a wonderful job. And whenever it comes to criminal justice reform, I can't imagine a greater person to speak on behalf of that, just because of all that he does in the community. And he is just so, 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 so dedicated. You just wonder, like, Chaplain, do you ever go to sleep? I suppose he sleeps when he does, but he spends most of his time and most of his days working hard for the community of Tarrant County, and of course, ultimately for the great state of Texas. He is a true patriot. He is a true fighter, and he believes in just making sure that all of the wheels are turning when it comes to not just like being a Republican, but being a conservative. And I'm so proud to know him. And I know he's unable to get on right now, but I would still very much so love for us to have him eventually.
Well, I know I was able to speak for a couple of minutes at the recent meeting for Frederick Douglass Republicans, um,
Absolutely.
and glad to be able to say a couple of words there and to actually let people know about us, and as far as if anything that we can do as far as any sort of partnerships and anything moving forward, look forward to take part. So I was glad about that. Now, one thing now, given the fact that we're kind of actually this is not really foreign for us. We're kind of going off, going on our own right now in this sense. But in talking about criminal justice reform, one thing in particular that I wanted to, well, not so much. I wasn't going to mention this with our interview with him, is that the elections coming up is a very important part when it comes to that, because oh, hold up, I think I got something.
Is it
Oh, I
Chaplain?
think I got it. Yeah, I think I got it.
You
Hold
got
on.
him?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Oh, there he is. He made it. He got it. Chaplain?
Yes, I can barely hear you. Can you hear me?
Brian, can you say something? Yes, we can hear you perfect. Brian, can you hear him?
Yeah, I can hear him. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, I
How
can
you doing, Chaplain Stoglin?
barely hear you. Finally, I don't know what happened, but I've got you on my phone. I'm doing well. I just hate that we are delayed because of technical situations.
Well, it happens all the time.
I don't know if you can hear me.
We appreciate you.
Can you?
Oh,
okay.
We can hear you.
Can you turn up your gain a little bit? I'm on my phone and I'm trying to see if I can get a better volume here. Mine is maximum.
Well, I'm gonna drop out, and Porsha, you can go ahead and ask him the first question.
You're gonna drop off? Hey, Chaplain, can you hear me pretty good?
I can barely hear you.
Okay, so I'm gonna my volume is max as well. But if you can't hear me, I've already done your introduction. So if you can't hear me, which I hope you can,
Okay.
my question to you would be, as far as criminal justice reform is concerned in Tarrant County, what are your thoughts on defunding the police or refunding the police, and in what areas can we improve the Tarrant County at large, the police department? Uh-oh, it seems like
Well, I think first of all, defunding the police is not a good idea. It's not a good option at all. Number two, you have to refund the law enforcement. For example, in 2020, 3,000 law enforcement agencies across this country, for whatever reason, decided not to submit reports to the FBI. Now, what does that have to do with Tarrant County? That's part of what they call the UCR, the Uniform Criminal Record or Report. And what they do is they consolidate that information to indicate to people, municipalities, Congress, state and local governments about crime and the categories that crime is committed. in. And so they did not do that. So we don't have a realistic picture of crime that's going on in Tarrant County as a result of that. So how does that impact us? There's a small office that's very powerful it's a national office. It's called the ISO. What is that? The Insurance Security Review Committee. And what they do, a commission, what do? They ensure municipalities ratings. And 1 is a tremendous thing. It's a 10, don't go there. And so that creates bonding, that creates borrowing, that creates municipal support. So if cities and counties want to get dollars or have support, that is a way to do that. Insurance security, the Insurance Security Office, the ISO. Well, guess what? Tarrant County is in good shape for now because you have Republicans who have really held people's feet to the fire to make certain that funding is there. Judges, sheriff's offices, constables, and so forth, prisons, county jails, etc. So that's how it should be funded. And if you don't fund those, then you're going to have crime, which is heavily impacting the Black community throughout this country. Dallas, Houston, Philadelphia, New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco. I could go on, but you get the picture. What is the common thread in all of that, Porsha? They are all Democratic controlled cities. Portland has decided, Portland, Oregon, which used to be a beautiful city, because they've destroyed the inner city of Portland so badly, they're not even insured. So what does that mean? That the state is losing dollars. Tarrant County specifically can't afford that. When you have the 3rd largest county in the great state of Texas out of 254 counties, we cannot afford that as a state and as a county.
And so whenever you say we cannot afford that as a state and as a county, currently we have Deborah Peoples who is running for county judge. So what might that look like as far as criminal justice reform is concerned if she were to be the winner? Oh no.
Oh, okay. So
Hopefully he comes back in.
yeah, I don't know if he heard your question. I hope he did.
I hope he did too.
It may be
because he's ready. He's ready to roll. He's always ready to go, and he always has the best answers and the best responses. He teaches you so much. So
well, until he comes back. So as a truck driver, I've been to Portland recently being like in the past year, and he's right. I mean, it is pretty bad. I mean, you just have like the homelessness problem is just it's to the point to, if I can try to describe it, to the sense of where, imagine being on 35. I mean, you kind of see it if you're from Austin, but it's nothing like that. It's worse in Portland. So imagine going down 35 and just seeing tents, and not only on the side of the freeway, I mean in the middle, all up on the grass everywhere, like just tents everywhere, and people just basically living right there on the freeway, and just it's pretty bad. And imagine that going throughout the whole city, and that's kind of how it looks. I mean, in Portland in particular. Austin kind of looks that way, but it's nothing in comparison to how it looks in Portland.
Okay, I was going to ask you. I was like, it's worse than Austin?
No. So Austin is pretty bad, but Portland is a lot
trash.
Worse.
Austin is trash. I can't.
So Portland is all. So Austin times 10. That's Portland. as far as how things look, I'm saying. Now, as far as the politics, it's probably just as bad too. But I mean, just as far as like, having tents just everywhere, and just a lot of drugs and stuff like that. So yeah, it's pretty bad out there. And so yeah, when he mentioned that, I was like, yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it firsthand. So I think he's coming back.
Well, We had some
Oh, okay, good.
we had some disconnect. I don't know if you heard my answer or not.
No, we did not hear your answer about Deborah Peoples running for county judge in Tarrant County in relation to criminal justice reform.
I don't think
In the
I don't think it's a good idea because personally, I don't know if you heard the explanation previously about the ISO Insurance Security Office that
Yes.
measures safety and economics and so forth. I mean, I don't think it's a good idea. You may have to consider, businesses may have to consider relocating or not coming here because I've known Deborah Peoples a long time, since the 1980s. I know her family, I think, fairly well, and just not the person we need to be county judge for Tarrant County. Defunding the police, there are statements have already been made to that effect from her campaign, and we cannot afford that. Calling crackheads is not the answer to dealing with crime and law enforcement and people like that. You cannot do that. And I think there has to be an appreciation for law enforcement. What I also have noticed is that there's this massive discussion about police reform. Did I say police reform? And then they're always talking about what law enforcement could do, which is a good thing because everyone should be held accountable. But my question would be, what about citizen accountability? Who's asking about that? When I was in school, I'm 65, we were taught citizenship. We were taught how to, it's important to obey and respect the law. And of course, I remember the civil rights movement. I remember all of those people. But at the same time, none of them said to be disrespectful to law enforcement. I mean, the worst of the times. So I think that the answer for me is we need Tim O'Hare, who is an attorney, who's been a mayor, who's been a chairman of the Tarrant County GOP, who understands the validity of law enforcement and understands that they have to be held accountable, but citizens have to be held accountable too. For example, if a law enforcement person comes up and says, hello, miss, or hello, mister, and they're cursed out, that's not the law enforcement's problem. That's the citizen's problem and their disrespect. So technically they could arrest that person because their lives could be threatened, or they felt their life was threatened, or something of that nature, or disorderly conduct. So there's got to be a better response than police reform and no citizen reform.
Excellent. Perfect answer. Brian, I would have to say, so due to our technical difficulties, if you could go ahead and ask Chaplain the 2 questions that you had for him, I think that would be great for him to give you some insight on his experience as a chaplain in the prison.
Yeah. So, and if you don't know, we're gonna go a little bit longer than usual because of beginning. So we're just gonna keep going. But
Thank you.
I wanted to ask. I mean, for people that don't know, I mean, what is it like serving as a chaplain in a prison?
It is challenging. It is rewarding. It is a headache. It is sometimes head scratching, because I was a chaplain with the U.S. Department of Justice Federal Bureau of Prisons for 24 years. And 17 of those years, I was a department head. So I was responsible for budgets. I was responsible for explanations of why religious services had to take place. And I had to remind people within the Federal Bureau of Prisons from Washington, D.C. down, that many of them owe their jobs to religious people, because the word penitentiary means house of penance. And it was the Quakers in the 1700s in the Commonwealth of Philadelphia in Pennsylvania that created a place for 17 cells where they had 17 men who they dealt with called penitents. They were penitents. And when they felt that the Quakers felt that these men were remorseful for debt, which they were in prison for, they in turn said to the governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, we think that they should be released. And the other reason is most of the men who were there were head of families. So how could they pay the debt when they're in prison? It was pretty impossible. And so from there, they became overwhelmed. The Quakers did, and they were not funded like they should have been or promised that they were. And so as a result, the state started taking over. That prison, Brian and Porsha, from the 1700s stayed open until 1974. It had turned into the Pennsylvania State Penitentiary. So chaplains, for me, being a chaplain was not only dealing with inmates, but had to deal with staff. We had to deal with budgeting. We had to deal with religious issues. We had to deal with burials, because if a person is a Muslim, what does that mean? If a person was a Roman Catholic, what does that mean? If they were Jewish, what does that mean? I had to learn about the Judge and Ghusl, which is the burial of the dead. Then I had to learn about the imams and the Islamic burial, which are very similar to the Jewish community, and then the Roman Catholics, where they had the last rites. All of those situations came into play for me as a chaplain, and particularly as a department head. So it was interesting, and I saw men. I didn't deal with women a lot. I dealt with some women, but my overwhelming experience was with men, and I saw men's lives change. But I also saw men who didn't want to change. So I dealt with gangs. I dealt with real mafia people. I dealt with law enforcement folks who broke the law, people who violated civil rights of citizens, not just Black, but across the board. So I dealt with a lot of people, some of whom extremely bad people, and some who were people who made mistakes, and some who disagreed with tax laws and didn't want to pay them, and they went to prison for it. So I had a combination over 24 years dealing with people. I also had the experience to go to the death house. I didn't see a death or an execution, but my job was to go with a Federal Bureau of Prison Administrator to look at the Texas Department of Criminal Justice death house and talk with the staff there. And by the way, if you go to Huntsville, Texas, to the death house, and then blindfolded and go to Terre Haute, Indiana, you would swear you're in the same building, because the Federal Bureau of Prisons death house is modeled after the Texas Department of Criminal Justice death house. So and I've dealt with riots. I dealt with the Marelitos, who were the Cuban prisoners who Fidel Castro said to Jimmy Carter, "You want them? You can have them." So he released mental health people who had mental health issues. He dealt with murderers. We think maybe even some people who were spies. And we had no way of knowing who these people were, because Jimmy Carter and the State Department at the time gave the Bureau of Prisons less than 2 hours to deal with this, and they couldn't. And so the Cubans heard they were going back, when in reality some were going to be returned, and they didn't care. So they rioted in two institutions, and I went to one of them, and they had literally taken over the prison, and they had to get it back. And I was part of a team that helped negotiate the release of 23 people who possibly could have been killed. And I was in the room when the decision was made how we were going to handle that. So I've been in riots. I've been in when I've dealt with people who, at the end of their life, I've dealt with people who were very bad people and some who were very good people. So working in a federal prison for me, and I've written some about it and published some things, was a great experience, but it was also a challenging one. And I'm glad I did it. But I would advise anybody who is thinking about going into that, they better know what they're doing and better be trained, educated, called per their religious tradition, because it is something else. And I was one of the, probably it was 25 of us, I think, at the Black Americans who were chaplains out of 300 in the Bureau of Prisons. And I was, when I left, one of the senior chaplains in the federal bureau prisons when I retired.
Wow, that's amazing insight and things that I had no idea. Were, but what was a part of your time there? And my last question is, so our monthly initiative is criminal justice reform, and you kind of touched on it already, but I just wanted to ask, as a chaplain, that as you just talked about in serving in a prison, the concept of criminal justice reform, like what does that term mean to you?
It means that you have to have a sense of balance. The word justice means to make right and to balance. The Lady Justice is blindfolded and she has a sword and a set of scales. And that means that she's to cut out injustice and to cut in justice. She's to cut out ignorance and disparity and to cut in equity in terms of justice, not black justice, not white justice, but justice. And so biblically, that's why from a Christian perspective, Jesus said, you've heard it said of old, but I say to you this day. Why? Because he was precluding tribalism. If you were a Babylonian and someone was Jewish, that was bad. But if you were a Jewish person and you kill another Jewish person, that was worse. So if you were rich and then you had people who were barefooted, and yet you call yourself a religious leader, and you do nothing to help those people, to help themselves, what are you doing? And so justice means to create opportunity for people to be part of community. And when you're part of community, you improve where you are, you improve each other, right? And so that to me is what justice reform should be like. Not the blame that slavery was there. I wasn't a slave. So I don't know what slavery is. I've read about it. It was brutal. It was ugly. It was oppressive. But because I choose in 2022 to go and steal a car has nothing to do with me being a slave, because I wasn't a slave. I chose to steal the car. Why? Because I liked the car. I didn't want to pay for it. I wanted to get back at someone. Whatever the excuse or the reason is, it wasn't my car. And slavery had nothing to do with me stealing a car, right? Because we get that mixed up, and that's horrible. It's interesting to me that slaves were the ones, freedmen, as they were called, were the ones who said, there's a book called There Is a River by the late Reverend Dr. Vincent Harding, who said, Brian and Porsha, it's in the air. It's in the water. It's on our hands. It's on the land. It's in our feet. There is a river. This river is not made of water, but of blood. And so those people who wanted to learn how to read and write, whose hands sometimes were cut off, and they were determined to do it anyway. They had more land after slavery than we do today. Hilton Head was owned by former slaves. And it wasn't all just trickery that they lost it. People didn't take care of it. People made excuses. They cultivated land. We had more farmland. We had millions of acres. And today, how many acres do we have? So when you start talking about justice reform, we've got to start within and then go out. Justice reform also means that if you are an officer or a person of the law, doesn't mean you disrespect me, but at the same time, you can't let me go if I've done a serious crime, or vice versa. It could be, as a citizen, I've got to understand that if I want my community to be better, then I've got to work with law enforcement. I've got to work with them, and we've got to work with each other. And there are examples of that where it happens as a mutual respect, and you have better opportunities for your community, for respect, for mutual agreements. That doesn't mean you're going to always agree, but you respectfully disagree with each other. And I mean, we have officers in law enforcement. I think people sometimes forget that are black people, white people, Hispanic people, Asian people, Native Americans. We have people from I mean, they are not just married to black people. They are married to other people, and they go home to their families, or they want to go back home to their families. So they too are part of the community, and they are not. But yet, I was in a meeting, a very impressive meeting with some people in a fraternity a few days ago, and I had to explain to them this defunding the police is not the way to talk to this person who happens to be in law enforcement, who happens to be black. This person has not abused anybody. He's not violated civil rights. Anybody's civil rights. He tries to help people. He even takes people on his own dime and try to deal with people who have mental issues, or some people who've been traumatized, and give them horses, let them ride horses for free. And yet, what are we doing? We want to vilify him because he happens to be a law enforcement. I'm glad he's in law enforcement. I'm glad he's there, because that means that he not only has a badge and a weapon, but he also is a human being. And the other thing, Brian, I think people need to understand is that I was a member of the Justice Department. I have a badge or credentials that are similar to an FBI agent. I don't have them. It says retired. It says U.S. Department of Justice, Federal Bureau of Prisons. So I was part of law enforcement for almost 24 years. And I didn't violate anybody's rights or whatever. But the other thing is, did I deal with people who had weapons? Of course I did. Because they had weapons. But guess what? I didn't hear any of them in my presence say, Brian, Porsha, I'm going out and kill black people today. I just didn't hear them say it. I've dealt with FBI agents. I've dealt with Secret Service. I've dealt with DEA. I've dealt with U.S. Marshals. I've dealt with state troopers. I've dealt with special investigators. I've dealt with NCIS agents over my years in both the Bureau of Prisons and in the U.S. Sea Services. And I have yet to hear any of them say, I am going to go and kill black people, sir, because I just want to do that. I haven't heard them say that. I haven't heard them do that. We talk about crime, and Brian and Porsha, perhaps this is a long answer. We have lots of crime in the black community. People are shooting each other. We have more black people shooting each other than law enforcement agencies shooting black people. That's in 2022. And I'm questioning why. So I know that's a long answer to your short question, but these are just some of the issues that are real. Well, let me give you an example. When I was in Afghanistan, I was the command chaplain, and Porsha knows this, of 39 nations of the world. I was on the #2 enemy snipers list. I had a real live, no joke security team 24/7 for 330 days, boots on the ground. Brian, Porsha, only one of them looked like me. Only one of them looked like me. But they took their jobs to protect this chaplain very, very seriously. For you to be sitting there and rockets and bullets are going out, and you in a tunnel, and you hear this Sergeant First Class say to people, listen up, we are expendable. The chaplain is not. Does everybody understand what I'm telling you? Yes. So they're saying we can be killed. We can be wounded. We better not get him that way. And these people did not, I say again, did not look like me. They took their jobs very, very, very seriously. My gear was 80 pounds. Theirs was 140 pounds per person. And they did that for 330 days, boots on the ground.
Wow.
They took care of me when I got in there and when I left. So,
wow. Yeah, that's that again, that's amazing. I mean, with everything that you have just mentioned, and I know where we at as far as time goes, but I just wanted to make sure that you had time for you to say what you need to say, because we definitely wanted to make sure you had want to hear everything you had to say. And for one, I appreciate you coming on. I mean, techno- technological difficulties happen all the time. So, but I'm just glad
It
we was
happens for
able
us all the
to have
time.
you
Yeah.
on. So,
And
Well,
then too, Brian, before we wrap up, and then Chaplain too, I always get emotional whenever Chaplain gets going and he starts talking about all of the incredible things that he's done throughout his lifetime. He's obviously a wonderful inspiration to me. If it wasn't for Mr. Darrell Easton, who was the former chairman of the Tarrant County GOP at the time, I wouldn't know Chaplain as I do today. And every time he speaks, he brings me to tears, and it's just an emotional thing for me because it's just a proud um, Black people in the Republican Party or Black conservatives. It's just like they're so picked on, and they're picked apart, and it's just like you're not Black enough, or however it may be. But Chaplain has always been that figure, that example for me. So in closing, as we wrap it up for our podcast tonight, I would like for you, Chaplain, to go ahead and tell us who the Frederick Douglass Republicans of Tarrant County are, and for our viewers, how could they get involved with the Frederick Douglass Republicans of Tarrant County, and how they can be an asset to our organization.
let me try to do that as quickly as I can. Number one, the Frederick Douglass Republicans of Tarrant County strive to maximize political participation of African Americans in the Republican Party, as well as others who share our conservative values. Our primary goal is to be an educational resource for economic, social, and political empowerment throughout the Republican Party. Our vision, our members promote the precept issued by founder, the late Reby Carey, who said, be informed, be an intelligent voter, make up your mind, and remember how to vote. The other is we need to understand that we created the first Black congressional caucus. There were Black Republicans, the senator from Mississippi. We had congressmen from South Carolina. We had North Carolina. We were the original Black caucus. The other is that when you look at Black people in the Republican Party and the influence they had, Brian, the 13th, 14th, 15th, and 19th Amendments, many said it was the really the support foundation to the Constitution. 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment said, one, Brian, you can't be a slave anymore. 14th said, Brian, as long as you don't do anything wrong, we can't violate due process, right? And 15, you can move about the country, right? And then the 19th Amendment gave women the right to vote over 105 years ago. Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, Ida B. Wells, those were Black Republicans primarily responsible for each of those pieces of huge legislation. And they were Republicans who voted for that. Okay. So if you look at history as a whole, and in terms of those amendments, pull it up. People talk about what the Democrats, no, they didn't. They voted against all of those. The other is Porsha was asking me about how people can get involved in the Frederick Douglass Republicans of Tarrant County. We have a website. We have a Facebook. We have a Twitter. And by the way, we also have a PAC. Brian endorsed 15 Republicans, 9 of whom received dollars from us. Dollars, as well as letters. $2,900. I'll just tell you, out of nine of them. The other is how people can get involved. You can look that up, and there's a email that you can utilize. But we ask people, don't come for show, come to work. Come to work, because we are not probably. We are the most diverse, forward-thinking Republican organization in Tarrant County, the great state of Texas, and our dear state of the U.S. Now, in closing, there are 30 Hispanics Republicans who are running for office. There are 24 Black Americans Republicans who are running for office, who are literally running for office now. 24, maybe, and we think a good portion of them are going to get elected. So when we look at what's happening, we have to understand that we are the strategic rock within the Republican Party and the voice of hope in this country. So why am I a Republican? Because Frederick Douglass was a Republican. Harriet Tubman was a Republican. Ida B. Wells was a Republican. Daddy King was a Republican. I could go on and on and on. And you look at the people who I've just named and look at what happened and what the influence they have had, you would be amazed. And so we Republicans, particularly Black Republicans, have played major roles. In fact, as I close, we've always, Black Republicans have always been in the Republican Party. Frederick Douglass says, I am a Republican. And for me, there is no other. There is no party. It is the party of Lincoln and I dare say of Douglass. And as he said, the Republican Party is the ship. The rest is the sea. Okay? Hopefully,
Thank you, Chaplain.
I hope I've answered your question. I know I've been a little lengthy at points. I'm just trying to create clarity. Brian, are you okay with that? Is Brian there?
I don't know where he went, but you did an excellent job, excellent points, answered all of our questions, and thank you, Chaplain.
All right, you're welcome. Hopefully next time we won't have those glitches, maybe a Zoom or something. I don't know.
Yes, so we don't have the glitches or
yes
technical difficulties that causes us to go over. So thank you so much.
All right.
And hopefully we'll be able to host you again soon.
Yeah, maybe after the elections.
After elections, vote Republican. To all of our viewers, our watchers, listeners, early voting is taking place right now. Mm-hmm. And then we have our election day, which is November 8th. So make sure that you get out and you vote. No matter what you do, vote, because right now, this is the most important election that you can vote in, and we need to make sure that our voices are heard and that our concerns are expressed, and so that we can continue to carry our country and not do away with the American dream, our Constitution, and all of the things that we as Republicans and conservatives fight for every day. So thank you to everyone who's watching tonight. I think we lost Brian, but thank you. Thank you, Chaplain Stoglin.
All right, Brian.
Brian's here. So yes, thank you. And
my phone overheated. Sorry.
Overheated. All right.
I don't know if it's the chaplain talking and made it overheat or what. Right? I don't know. But make sure you invite Brian to our party, Porsha.
Absolutely. And Brian, I know your phone overheated, but for everyone who watches our podcast, I want to say thank you to all of you for my birthday wishes. Thank you. I got your messages and your emails and your cash apps and all of those things like that. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and also one thing I want to mention before, because I'm also a battery. But anyway, if everyone saw at the beginning that we had a candidate guide at the beginning. So if you go to Bledsoe.com, you can click on that and go to our candidate guide. It only goes as far as like state elections, so don't go as far as like judges that we mentioned in this episode. But if anyone is interested as far as wanting to know about their candidates, just go to Bledsoe.com and click on candidate guide.
All right. Y'all take it easy. Invite Brian to our party, Porsha.
Yes, Chaplain.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.